Hi, how you doing, class? This is Mr. Wallington, and we are back for week six. Week six, building a security-aware culture. I will tell you, I know we all love the techie stuff. It's fun, and then all, Splunk, Nessus, and all these tools that we love to work with, and now we got AI. But I tell you, one of the biggest areas where we make the most money in what we do with regard to security of information and privacy, it is having a culture within our organization who understands security, having a training program that is that fosters a security mindset within the organization. All right, let's get into this. So when we look at Module 6, learning objectives like we do every week, not a lot changed here, right? We're going to describe some of the basic elements with creating a cybersecurity training program. Also, we're going to look at how can you better articulate your position with respect to privacy and its relationship to the organization's mission. That's one thing you do. You always want to be able to tie your training, your cybersecurity program, all that has to be tied to what your business mission, what your business output is. It's so easy, guys. It's so easy to get de-linked to where we have a great cybersecurity program that's focused on security. However, it is de-linked from what the organization, what the C-suite, what our leadership needs us to focus on. Because at the end of the day, it's about risk, right? And the risk appetite of our senior leaders within our organization is really what drives how well and how much money is going to be spent on security. So when we take a look at this module, at a glance, like I say, like we do each week, complete the knowledge check. This week we do have a discussion, right? Week 6, yes. So we have a discussion. So let's get back on your discussion post, responding to at least 2 of your peers, and also, like I said, when I'll sometimes throw some questions in there, and a lot of times when I throw these questions, it's to provoke thought. Not to provoke agreement, but to provoke thought. And sometimes I may throw some things in there. I want to hear your opinion. Whether you agree, disagree, doesn't matter. Just reply back to those. And we got a project this week, Project 2, Legal and Ethical Recommendations. Some of the reading resources, how to build a cybersecurity and privacy learning program. Now, this is a relatively new NIST publication, National Institute of Standards and Technology. 850. This is revision 1 that they're working on. So you're going to use that as a resource to help build a cybersecurity privacy learning program. And also, we're going to look at some summaries of HIPAA security and privacy rules. In the textbook, we're on Chapter 14, Legal and Privacy Issues in Information Systems. Like I said, with respect to assignments, this week Project 2 is due, okay? Remember, use the Project 2 scenario and the rubric. Guys, I can't overstress the use of the rubric, because that is going to put you on a path for success if you stick to that rubric, because that's what I'm grading from, all the way down to page number and how you format your assignments. That's what I'm grading on, guys. Also, coming up next week, just a peek behind the curtain, right? Project 3 is due next week. You're going to continue your role as an executive level security consultant with FitVantage Technologies. Now, what you're going to do here is start identifying controls that the company can use to implement to defend against social engineering attacks. Okay, and you also will have to explain why an employee training program is so important. Okay, so when we talk about security, get a little deeper into security awareness training. The entire purpose of this is, yes, mitigate risk and protect critical information. Risk mitigation, guys. I know I always beat this drum a lot, but everything we do is tied to risk. Whether we're at work, in our lives, in our homes, church, wherever you may be, everything we're doing in these organizations and these environments is to mitigate risk. And in this environment, we also want to protect the golden egg. We talked about the golden egg, I think, last week before, how to protect that golden egg. So when we think about risk, it comes down to the basic formula. Now, I will tell you, a lot of you guys are going to work on your certification. It doesn't matter if you're looking at a Security Plus, CASP, CISSP, CISM, ethical hacking, whatever it is, doesn't matter. I almost can guarantee when you open up that book, you're going to see probably the first one of the domains is going to talk about this. And you know what we love to do? Because we're these techie guys, we just blow right past this. Come on, get to the good stuff. I don't want to have to read about this. But this is what it comes down to, risk. The likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability and the corresponding business impacts. This is what you're tying together. This is what's making you money in your organization. If you can't explain to your program managers and to your CIO or CISSO what is the impact then why do I want to spend money on some new tool or some new server or some new appliance that's supposed to do all these things, and you can't articulate the risk, the business impact? If I don't get this, here's the likelihood of this, this, and this happening. This is what it all comes down to, is articulating the risk to business impact. So when we set up a training program, and a lot of these, the rest of the slides you're going to see are actually some slides that I pulled from the training program that I use at work. Not completely, like not holistically, because I work for a DoD, Department of Defense contractor, right? So there are things that we are bound to have to train because we support the federal government and the Department of Defense. So I back naturally some of those things out, and in the areas we work in, secret, top secret, or whatever it may be, in classified spaces. So there's some things I did, but just overall, I'm just going to walk through some slides, some things to think about, to consider as you're in your company, in your organization, wherever you may be, and you have to build some type of security awareness training. I start here, with understanding the why, and this is the big why, because in your organizations, no matter where you are, there are threats. Threats are going to always exist, right? You're going to always have threats. There could be malicious threats, negligent threats. It could be accidental. Doesn't matter. You're going to have some type of threat all the time. It could be insider, cyber. Now, cyber threats. Now, we have a lot of times, a lot of organizations right here, is negligence. Here's what I mean. Untrained workforce, people clicking on things that they shouldn't because of either lack of training, lack of a culture that that doesn't feed into that type of behavior, and then these turn accidental, and then the malicious one will float to the top. But so when you think about that threat, we're always going to have some type of threat. Now, when a threat meets a vulnerability, what is the vulnerability? A weakness. That's some type of weakness in our security posture. Just because we have a weakness doesn't mean that it has been exploited, right? So we have lots of weaknesses. We've got untrained workforce. A lot of times our policies are very vague, or they're written in cyberspeak. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago in one of my lectures, learning to translate, because everybody doesn't live cybersecurity every day. So when you start using a lot of cyber geek terms, you lose the salesperson, you lose the guys working on the shop floor. That's not their world. So many times our policies are vague. To us, it makes perfect sense. Well, what do you mean they don't understand confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and the likelihood of exploitation? Because that's our speak. If you go down to the engineers and they start talking about all their engineering terminology, that's going to sound vague to us. So many times we have to be sure that our policies, when we write them, are developed in a way that's understandable. Unsecure information systems, another vulnerability, because guarantee again that all of our systems are not patched. They're not updated with antivirus, all the things that we should typically do for cyber hygiene. So you have vulnerabilities that exist all the time, and then within the same environment, now we have these threats, malicious, they could be negligent, accidental. Now, when a threat exploits a vulnerability, this is where we start talking about business impact. Now, that impact could be profit loss. Yes, just straight bottom line. But a bigger impact many times is this right here, our business reputation. Because reputation is everything in business. Once people understand, whoa, man, their security is very lax. Your personal information isn't safe. You don't want to go out to their websites because they've got advanced persistent threats. All these things are happening. So now our reputation is tarnished, and when that tarnishes, then it will have an impact on profit and loss. So think about this whole thing from a risk perspective. The likelihood of a threat exploiting a vulnerability and the corresponding business impact. So when you build your training, I like driving that point home. So then from there, I can start looking at, now what topics do I want to talk about that are associated or pull the thread that is related to the risk factor, to the attack surfaces that we operate in. Now, one where I always like to start is here, organizational security. And within that organizational security, I'm talking about organizational policies, organizational procedures, things that the workforce need to know, not just things that security need to know, but from a workforce perspective. Insider threat. Explain insider threat, again, from a workforce perspective. Always put the lens on from a customer perspective or a user perspective, as well as introducing your security staff and understanding the reporting procedure so that when there is an incident, they understand how to report it, who do they need to talk to in the organization. And then I like to follow up with training on accounts and account management. This is huge right here, guys, because many of the exploits that we see day to day, large companies, large government agencies, and we just talked about OPM, right, that not too long ago, about how that exploit happened. So many times it happens right here. Account management, having the right type of training to understand what type of accounts individuals need to know. Do they have access to just the things that they need to be able to do their job? Have they signed their computer use or general user agreements? Understanding the different account types, priv user accounts, general user account, group accounts, service accounts, all the different types of accounts, and huge authenticator management. It doesn't matter if you're using passwords or you may have multi-factor authentication, whatever it may be, that the user understands how to manage and how to protect their passwords. All of these things are important. Then it's also good to go into physical security. Now, when we talk about physical security, badging, who's authorized to swipe, who's managing the badge that can allow you to get into different spaces. Tailgating, this is a huge one because depending on your organization, everyone may not be allowed or should be allowed to come into spaces. But here's the problem. We, especially Americans, but most humans, I would say, but especially Americans many times, we are just too trusting. Okay? Too trusting. I guarantee I could put on a brown suit, a brown, work uniform with a brown cap that I look like I'm, a employee of FedEx, take a dolly, stack several boxes up on top of that to where you can just barely see my face, and I can roll that to the door of a lot of organizations, and people are going to look and go, oh, okay, let me help you with that. And they will open the door and let me come right in without ever verifying or validating that I am actually legitimate to get into that through that door. Why? Because we just got the impression of, that's the FedEx guy. Okay, they show up every day. Of course, FedEx guy. And I don't recognize his face, but he must be, the other guy must be on leave. And even if they ask, they say, so where's the guy who usually works? Oh yeah, he's taking leave this week with his family in Florida. And oh wow, that's good. Yeah, having a great time with the kids. Strike up a good conversation, and guess what? You'll let me walk right into your organization. So tailgating. Very, very important to understand, and it shouldn't hurt anyone's feelings to stop them gently and say, I'm sorry, can I see your badge, or can I see some type of identification if you don't recognize them? Understanding tailgating. Now, another big area that you can talk about in your training programs, hardware, software restrictions, and usage. What is the guidelines and policies in your organizations for things like company warning banners? With the federal government, we have what we call a DoD warning banner, meaning that when you first log into a Department of Defense system, you're going to get this blue banner, and anybody that's been in the military out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This blue banner that you have to click OK before you can log in any farther on that machine. And you may have the same types of banners within your organization, company banners. And what these banners are, these are legal instruments, so that if someone gets into your network and does something, you take them to court. They can't go, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know I was on their network. I was just browsing around and surfing the internet, and I ended up here. Well, no, you can't, because now you have to consent by hitting that button. Any classified system uses. If you have company systems that are classified, it could be company most private or company proprietary, or if you're in the Department of Defense or some other federal agency where you may have top secret information. Explain the usage of these systems. Personal electronic devices, depending on where you are, these could all be allowed in your organization. But you need to understand that, as well as the BYOD, or bring your own device policy. I know a lot of organizations now, you can bring your personal electronic device, your phone or your laptop or your iPad, and connect to the company's network. These are policies that we want to ensure we've laid flat to where that's everyone understands the requirements associated, because now we are stretching out the attack surface much wider out to people's personal devices and even to their home. Email collaboration tools like Teams, Messenger, whatever you use in your organization, SharePoint, be able to explain the policies associated with how you're going to use those. Laptops that people travel with, so someone that has to go overseas with a laptop. What are those processes, procedures, as well as, like I say, work from home security processes? These are the things that you can add to your training program to robust up understanding of this hardware, the software usage, and restriction. And one of the last areas I always cover is incident response. know how to recognize, know how to report any type of incident that may happen in your organization. Data spills, that's a huge one in a lot of areas when you have data spills, but any type of incident on the network. Here again, just an idea of some topics that you can use as you start to build some type of security awareness training program. Now, one of the things that I like to always stress, because is, we hear a lot of talk about, zero trust. Sounds like a great concept, right? Well, a lot of that, but really zero trust is based on something very fundamental that is non-technical. It's called role-based access control, RBAC, meaning that you're going to get access based on your role in that organization. So being able to explain the different type of roles. Yeah, because one of the things you may have what we call a general user. That's pretty much anyone in your environment who has a need to get onto the network. Anybody that can input, modify, or extract any information from your information system. And typically the training is very awareness type training, and have them sign some type of an acknowledgement form. Now also in your organization, you may have I almost guarantee you have privileged users of some type. Now when we talk about privileged users, these are users who have to perform some type of security relevant action on the network, on the information system, like your system administrators, auditors, your network administrators, DBAs, database administrators. Now with these individuals, there should be a lot more scrutiny, not only general user type training, awareness training, but then some type of specific role-based training, and with some type of acknowledgement that they understand, what the ramifications are. Now, one of the things that I do, I take it a step farther, not just the different user roles, but user accesses. Because not only do I need to understand your role, but now, what do you require access to? So when you think about managing and training individuals, that they know that, okay, if I'm a user, but I need to get access to this file share or this website, so that now we can track not only your user activity, your user role, but also your user access and the activity associated with that. So when we think about some of those topics, I'm going to drill down a little bit in some of these different areas. So when we think about the rules of behavior, one of the things I always like to stress is some type of written, signed user agreement. Now, in this agreement, you can have a lot of things that we've already talked about included in that: how to protect your account authenticators, personal electronic devices, how to adhere to work from home policies, whatever it may be, but have some type of signed document that they are acknowledging. They are acknowledging that, yes, I've read this and I'm signing. Another thing we can also do is go deeper into user account rules. Okay, and especially when you talk about things like if you're, let's say, your passwords. If you're still a password authenticated network, how do you maintain your password? What do you use to set those? Do we use a passphrase? Do you have to have so many uppercase, lowercase, special characters in your password? Lockouts. How if you don't touch the screen, does it lock? Does your machine lock out? After 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. These are things that your system administrators they will set up on the network. Password age. How often will you be required to change your password? Every 60 days, every 90 days. Things like failed login attempts. Failed login attempts is huge because, if I fat finger my password 3 times, does it, and it's incorrect, do my system lock out? And I have to have an administrator, or do it unlock itself? Or is that even set? Because now when we talk about brute force attacks, now I'm an individual, I can try, 3 times, wait 15 minutes. Try 3 times, wait 15 minutes. So, and try to brute force into somebody's account. So understanding these things. And another area I always like to go a little deeper on when I talk about information protection. How to protect the information in your organization. Everything from software, copyright rules, that everyone is using approved software. But how to protect screen on your data. Man, we talk about shoulder surfing, right? Well, yeah, there should be something in your training to talk about how to protect, whether it's putting screen protectors, adjusting your monitors so that people walking by just can't arbitrarily look over your shoulder. All of these things you can add to that. This is an area sometimes that I know we feel like we probably don't have to. Why should we add this to our cybersecurity awareness training? Physical security, very important. Very important. Why? Because we want to ensure that people who are not authorized to get into physical spaces are indeed blocked out, that nobody's tampering with any seals or door locks, that we're protecting, again, our entry badges and things of that nature. So a lot of things. Now, a lot of those things that we talked about, are really associated with everyone in your organization. The next thing that we like to do is now drill down deeper when it comes to users or privileged users within our organization. So you may have, and this is just a smattering of different privileged user individuals. Like a domain system administrator. You can have a local administrator, somebody who just has access to a single machine. A domain administrator, they have access to the enterprise. Network administrator, like I said, that's the individuals who are actually working with your switches and routers and all the infrastructure. Now, smaller organizations, many times this is the same individual. Larger organizations, may have a system administrator separate than your network administrator. Likewise, you may also have a database administrator. Somebody's doing the back-end management of your databases for SharePoint and for all these different collaboration tools or engineering tools that we use. Application tools administrator. Let's say you're working with DevSecOps software developers. They've got their own application tools that now they may need elevated privileges to be able to administer those applications on the operating system, whether it's Windows or Red Hat or whatever it may be. Auditing, your auditors, again, another privileged user category, and you may also take that, you could have a tier 1 auditor, tier 2 if you're in some type of SOC or environment, maybe even a tier 3, and each one of those may have different levels of privileged user accesses. These are accesses that are security relevant, so that's why you really want to monitor your priv users, and in your training really start setting up, okay, what things should these privileged users be aware of, especially what the should do's and that they should not do. For instance, do not use your priv user account to perform routine non-administrative tasks. What that means is that just don't come in the morning and log in onto your priv user account. Even if you are a system administrator, you really should have a separate general user account that you're doing your day-to-day reading email and all these routine tasks. Now, if you want to escalate and I've got to build somebody's account, now I'm going to escalate to my priv user account and go from there. You don't change information. I'm not going to read through these, and this is one that's huge, right? Protect the root or super user. If you're operating in a Linux environment, then you know that the super user, the sudo, or the root, if someone gets to root into your system, they will own your network. So you want to be sure that your system administrators are protecting those things. Also, when this really touches into the privacy. So even though I'm a system administrator, domain system administrator, and I've got access to everything, I can go into folders and get into several things. Just because I can doesn't mean that I should. So you all want to be sure that you train your workforce to respect the confidentiality and the privacy of information that they may encounter during the performance of their privileged duties, where they're performing those roles. Any type system changes, really, again. So just a handful of priv user rules and behaviors. Now, again, the last thing I always like to touch on, and really when I train this, I go much deeper, but incident response, how to recognize an incident and how to report that. And one of the biggest ones, these are kind of the big three in the environment where I work, data spills, inadvertent disclosures, malware. Always, be on the lookout for those data spills. Somebody wants to put information on a system that isn't capable from a security perspective to process that information. Inadvertent disclosure, you saw something on the network that you shouldn't have seen, you did not have the need to know. And malware, pretty much self-explanatory. So when we think about incident handling, there's just some things to keep in mind. Preserve the scene, preserve the data, understand chain of custody, and the reporting requirements within your organization. And also, now from there, I always go into the incident response life cycle. How to prepare, detect, and analyze, contain, eradicate, recover, and then the post-incident activities. Actually, this is what I'll add in, just so that individuals, we're not trying to make them incident response experts. What we're training this from the perspective is that if you have an incident within your environment as a non-security person, here's some things to be aware of, especially these. Now, when it comes to these, this is where we bring in the security, our security team, our incident response team, or some type of CERT team that now can start going through these. But it's important that that other people in your organization understand that these roles exist in the background. So when they're doing their thing as far as recognizing and reporting, they know that it's not just it's falling on deaf ears. There's actually work going in behind this. Now, for the priv users, then there is definitely things that your priv users need to understand, because many times they will be part of this IR, this incident response team. So when we think about training, like I said, so there's a lot of things that go into training, and we talked about some of these today. You know, not only did we talk about our module assignments, but also, you know, so our security training topics and our security resources, so that now when we look at this week, we just really hope you're going to have a great week. Kind of pull these things together, use them as ideas, so if and when in your organization you're called upon to develop a security awareness training program, that you're on top of it and you've got some ideas, you've got some things in the back of your mind to fall back on. All right, have a great week 6. Don't forget the discussions, and we are out.